The Anderson Technology headquarters loomed over downtown, its gleaming windows reflecting the morning sun. 10 years ago, I was thrown out of this building, my father's words echoing behind me. Take your $100 and never come back. Now I stood in the lobby, straightening my Armani suit and checking my reflection in the polished marble walls. The security guard didn't recognize me. Why would he? Last time I was here, I was wearing a crumpled shirt and carrying a cardboard box of my belongings. I'm here for the merger meeting, I told him, presenting my ID. Oliver Maxwell, CEO of Phoenix Innovations. My father had no idea that the mysterious company he was so desperate to merge with was mine. He didn't know that the signature he needed belonged to the son he disowned a decade ago. But let me start from the beginning. I was born into the Anderson dynasty. My father, Richard Anderson, built Anderson Technology from the ground up, turning it into one of the largest tech manufacturers in the country. From childhood, I was groomed to take over the company alongside my older brother, James. The problem? I saw the future of technology differently than my father did. We need to invest in AI and renewable energy, I argued during one particularly heated board meeting. At 25, I was the youngest executive in the company, a position earned through merit but constantly questioned due to nepotism. Stick to what we know, my father dismissed me with a wave. Computer hardware has served us well for 30 years. James, ever the dutiful son, nodded in agreement. Oliver's just trying to reinvent the wheel again. But I knew I was right. The tech landscape was changing rapidly, and Anderson Technology was falling behind. Our profit margins were shrinking, our market share declining. Yet my father refused to adapt. The final straw came when I discovered something disturbing in our manufacturing process. Our main factory was cutting corners, using substandard materials to save costs. The defect rate was rising, but my father's solution was simple. Bury the complaints. It's just business, he said when I confronted him. The savings outweigh the risks. Until someone gets hurt, I countered. Or until our reputation is destroyed. The argument that followed would change my life forever. My father, red-faced with rage, accused me of betraying the family legacy. James stood by, smirking, as our father systematically stripped me of my responsibilities. If you don't like how we do business, my father spat, then leave. I looked him straight in the eye. Fine. He pulled out his wallet, extracted a $100 bill, and threw it at me. Take your ideals and your $100. See how far they get you in the real world. I picked up the bill, tucked it into my pocket, and walked out. Behind me, I heard James say, "He'll come crawling back within a month." They didn't know that I'd been preparing for this moment. While working at Anderson Tech, I'd been developing my own ideas, filing patents under a different name. I had a plan. I just needed the courage to execute it. That $100 bill became my reminder, my motivation. I framed it and hung it on the wall of my tiny studio apartment, where I spent the next year working 18-hour days. With my savings and a small loan from my mother's sister, the only family member who still spoke to me, I founded Phoenix Innovations. The name was deliberate, rising from the ashes of my old life. The first 2 years were brutal. I lived on ramen noodles, worked out of a garage, and faced rejection after rejection. But I had something Anderson Tech didn't, a vision of the future. I developed an AI-driven energy management system that could reduce a company's power consumption by 40%. It was exactly the kind of innovation my father had dismissed as unnecessary. The breakthrough came when a major tech journal featured our prototype. Suddenly, investors were calling. Within 6 months, we secured our first round of funding, $50 million. I never forgot the lessons learned at Anderson Tech, both good and bad. I built Phoenix Innovations with transparency and innovation at its core. We invested heavily in research and development, treated our employees well, and never compromised on quality. 5 years after being thrown out of my father's office, Phoenix Innovations was valued at $300 million. We had offices in 3 countries and a reputation for being at the cutting edge of AI and renewable energy technology. But I kept my identity secret. In the business world, I was Oliver Maxwell, the mysterious founder of Phoenix Innovations. Few people knew that Maxwell was my mother's maiden name, or that the CEO who was disrupting the tech industry was the same person Richard Anderson had thrown out with just $100. I watched from afar as Anderson Technology struggled. Their outdated business model and quality issues finally caught up with them. Their stock price plummeted, and rumors of impending bankruptcy began to circulate. That's when James made his move. He orchestrated a plan to merge with a more innovative company, one that could bring Anderson Tech into the modern era. After months of searching, he found the perfect candidate, Phoenix Innovations. The irony was almost too perfect. I received the merger proposal on a Tuesday morning. My assistant Sarah, who was one of the few people who knew my real identity, placed it on my desk with a knowing smile. "Your brother's signature is at the bottom," she said. "He's desperate to make this happen." I opened the folder and there it was, a formal request for merger negotiations, promising Anderson Tech's manufacturing capabilities in exchange for Phoenix's innovative technology. The proposed deal was worth $500 million. I sat back in my chair, holding the document that could change everything. A decade ago, I left that building with nothing but a $100 bill and a dream. Now they needed my signature to save their company. The merger meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. As I rode the elevator up to the conference room, where I'd once argued with my father about the future of technology, I thought about all the nights I'd worked until dawn, all the sacrifices made, all the doubts overcome. The doors opened and I stepped into a corridor that held so many memories. Through the glass walls of the conference room, I could see them waiting, my father, older now but still imposing, and James anxiously checking his watch. They were expecting to meet Oliver Maxwell, the brilliant CEO of Phoenix Innovations. Instead, they were about to come face to face with the son they'd written off as a failure. I reached for the door handle, my $100 bill burning a hole in my wallet where I kept it as a reminder. It was time to show them exactly what that $100 had bought. I pushed open the conference room door, and a decade of history rushed in with me. The room fell silent as I walked in, my footsteps echoing on the marble floor. My father's eyes widened in shock, while James nearly dropped his tablet. "Oliver?" My father's voice was barely a whisper. "Hello, Dad." I placed my briefcase on the polished table. "I believe you were expecting Oliver Maxwell." James shot to his feet. "What are you doing here?" "Security." "I wouldn't," I said calmly, pulling out my business cards. "Oliver Anderson Maxwell, CEO of Phoenix Innovations. I'm exactly who you're here to meet." The blood drained from James's face as understanding dawned. Our father gripped the arms of his chair, his knuckles turning white. "This is impossible," he growled. "Phoenix Innovations is a multi-billion-dollar company." "Yes," I agreed, sitting down at the head of the table. "And you need our technology to save Anderson Tech from bankruptcy." Sarah entered with a team of lawyers, distributing documents with practiced efficiency. I watched my father's eyes scan the papers, his expression shifting from disbelief to something close to fear. "These ownership documents," he said hoarsely. "You really are the founder and majority shareholder of Phoenix Innovations?" "Yes." I pulled out the framed $100 bill from my briefcase and placed it on the table. "Best investment you ever made, Dad." James lunged forward. "You planned this, didn't you? All these years, you've been plotting your revenge." I met his gaze steadily. "No, James, I've been building something. Something you and Dad were too stubborn to see we needed 10 years ago." My father's business mask slipped back into place. "Fine. You've made your point. Name your price." "Price?" I raised an eyebrow. "For the merger. Obviously, you're here to extort us, to humiliate us." I opened my laptop and pulled up a presentation. "Actually, I'm here to save Anderson Technology, if you're willing to listen." Over the next hour, I outlined my vision. Phoenix's AI technology integrated with Anderson's manufacturing capabilities could revolutionize the industry, but it would require changes, major ones. "First," I said, clicking to a new slide, "we need to completely overhaul the manufacturing process. No more cutting corners on materials." My father flinched. "Those cost-saving measures are necessary for..." "They're necessary for nothing." I cut him off. "Phoenix operates with a 2% defect rate compared to Anderson's 15%. We achieve this while maintaining higher profit margins through automated efficiency." James leaned forward, his hostility momentarily forgotten as he studied the numbers. "These production costs, they're impossible." "They're standard for us," I replied, "because we invested in the future instead of clinging to the past." The presentation continued. With each slide, I could see my father's resistance crumbling. The technology he dismissed as unnecessary a decade ago was now his only hope for survival. There's one more thing, I said, pulling out a final document. The merger agreement requires a complete restructuring of the board. You want control, my father said flatly. I want competence, I corrected him. Your current board has led this company to the brink of bankruptcy. That ends now. James stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. This is extortion. You can't just walk in here and take over. Actually, I can. Your stock price has dropped 60% in the past year. You're facing 3 class action lawsuits over defective products. Without this merger, Anderson Technology will be bankrupt within 6 months. I let that sink in before continuing. But I don't want that. Despite everything, this company was built by our family. I want to save it, but on my terms. My father was quiet for a long moment. And what are your terms? Complete restructuring. You and James step down from operational roles but retain board seats. I bring in my own management team. We implement Phoenix of quality standards and ethical guidelines across all operations. And if we refuse, I close my laptop. Then I walk out that door, and you can explain to your shareholders why you let personal pride destroy their investment. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, my father did something I'd never seen before. He laughed. A genuine, almost relieved laugh. You really did it, he said, shaking his head. You proved me wrong. Completely and utterly wrong. That wasn't my goal, I replied quietly. No, he agreed. Your goal was to build something better. And you did. He picked up the merger agreement. Where do I sign? James wasn't so easily convinced. Dad, you can't be serious. He's trying to steal our company. No, son, our father sighed. He's trying to save it, something we should have let him do 10 years ago. The next few months were intense. Merging 2 major tech companies is never simple. But transforming a corporate culture is even harder. Many of Anderson's old guard resisted the changes, clinging to outdated methods and mindsets. I moved my office back into the Anderson building, though I kept the $100 bill framed on my wall. Every morning, I'd look at it and remember where this journey started. James eventually came around, though it took time. One evening, he came to my office, holding a report about our new AI-driven manufacturing process. The defect rate is down to 3%, he said, dropping the report on my desk. And profits are up 40% this quarter. I know, I replied, not looking up from my computer. He shifted uncomfortably. Listen, Oliver, I was wrong. We were all wrong. What you've built, it's incredible. I finally looked at him. It's not about being right or wrong, James. It's about being willing to change, to adapt, to see beyond what's comfortable. He nodded slowly. Think you could teach me? That was the beginning of a new chapter in our relationship. James proved to be an apt student once he let go of his pride. His experience with traditional manufacturing complemented my innovative approach, and together we started bridging the gap between the old Anderson tech and the new. My father took longer to adjust. He would sit in board meetings, watching as we implemented changes to the company he'd built. Sometimes I'd catch him smiling proudly, other times he'd grip his armrests in barely concealed anxiety. 1 year after the merger, we held a company-wide celebration. Anderson Phoenix Technology, as we were now known, had just been named the most innovative tech company in the country. Our stock price had tripled, and our products were setting new industry standards. During the celebration, my father pulled me aside. He seemed older, more vulnerable than I'd ever seen him. I've been thinking about that $100, he said, gesturing to the framed bill in my office. What about it? I gave it to you as an insult, thinking you'd fail and come crawling back. He shook his head. Instead, you used it as motivation to build something extraordinary. I studied him for a moment. You know, I never wanted to prove you wrong, Dad. I just wanted to prove myself right. He smiled sably. You did both. He reached into his pocket and pulled out another $100 bill. I don't suppose you'd let me invest this in the company? Better late than never. For the first time in years, I laughed with my father. Sorry, Dad, we're not currently accepting new investors. Now, 5 years after the merger, Anderson Phoenix Technology is a different company. Our AI systems are revolutionizing manufacturing worldwide. Our renewable energy division, once dismissed as a pipe dream, is leading the industry. James runs our traditional manufacturing arm, implementing innovative solutions in ways I never could have managed alone. My father, though retired, still sends me articles about emerging technologies, usually with notes saying, "What do you think about this?" The $100 bill still hangs on my wall, but it's no longer a reminder of rejection. Instead, it's a testament to something more important. Sometimes being kicked out is just life's way of forcing you to build your own door. Every now and then, ambitious young entrepreneurs ask me for advice. They expect to hear about business strategies or investment tips. Instead, I tell them about a $100 bill and a choice. You can let rejection defeat you, or you can let it drive you. The real measure of success isn't in proving others wrong. It's in proving yourself right. And sometimes the longest way around turns out to be the shortest way home. Looking out from my office window at the city skyline, I can see both the Anderson Building and the Phoenix Tower, now connected by a symbolic sky bridge. It's a fitting metaphor for how life works. The bridges we build are often more important than the buildings they connect. That $100, it wasn't an ending, it was a beginning. And sometimes that's all you really need.